Hi, my name is Ariana. I do like 14 different things for money because I'm a millennial and that's how it goes. But one of the things that I do is I write about beer for various publications. I have been published at Insider, VinePair, October, which if you're a beer person, you probably already know about, but if you've clicked on this, you're probably not a beer person, and that's okay. I'm here to help you. Beer snobbery is a huge thing. We are living in the age of craft beer, and that's wonderful. But if you don't know a ton about beer and you're surrounded by people who do know a lot or think they know a lot, it can be kind of intimidating to talk about beer or to know what to order. So I'm gonna help you out by giving you some key terms, vocab you should know, and general tips for talking about beer and the way it tastes. One really good rule of thumb when it comes to talking about beer is you can just use words that are already in your vocabulary. If you're drinking a beer and you think this kind of tastes like chocolate or coffee a little bit, you can say that. You can say, I taste coffee or I taste chocolate. If you want to sound a little bit more pretentious about it, you can say, I'm getting notes of coffee from this, or notes of chocolate. If something tastes the way a pine tree smells, it tastes piney. Chances are, whether the tasting notes you're getting are fruity, herbal, taste like a pastry, whatever it is, just say it. You can't be wrong. You're just perceiving things that are there. A lot of these tasting notes too are applicable to wine in some cases, although I would say that wine has more specific vocabulary that only exists in the wine world, like tannic and mineralic and things like that. That's honestly the nice thing about beer, is that so much of it is just intuitive, using words you already know, describing the things that you can taste and smell and see with your senses using words you already have. Another general beer term that you should know is style. Now, there are about 1 million different styles of beer. They all fall under the categories of ales and lagers. The difference between ale and lager is pretty simple, but it's also technical. We don't need to get into that now. What you should know is that there are virtually 1 million different styles of beer, and that can refer to stouts, porters, IPAs, amber ales, English style bitters, Kolsch, some sours, gozas, Berliner Weisses. Basically what I'm saying is I cannot possibly tell you all the different terms that refer to the style of a beer. It's the kind of thing that you just kind of have to pick up as you go. So do your best to pay attention when people talk about different styles and when you're drinking different beers to what style it is. But even people who are really experienced in beer probably are surprised now and then by a new style that they haven't heard of before. Another general beer term you should know is hops, hoppiness. Hops are a plant that are in the same family as marijuana. They're in the cannabis family. And hops have historically been added to beer for the sake of preservation and also flavor. So hops add bitterness to beer. They also add a lot more than that. Hops can add a piney flavor, tropical fruit flavors. They can add that dankness. So if you ever smell a beer and you're like, oh, it kind of smells like weed, or if anyone ever around you describes a beer as dank, what they're saying is it smells like marijuana, and that's because it has a lot of, or very prominent, hops in it, which are in the same family as marijuana. So makes sense. If someone is describing a beer as hoppy, chances are what they mean is that it's really bitter. And they might also be referring to the dankness or some other quality that the hops can add. The amount of hops, type of hops used, when and where in the brewing process hops are added, can impart a lot of flavor, the most obvious of those flavors being bitterness. So if someone is using hoppy as a shorthand, chances are they're just trying to say that their beer is really bitter. If you are drinking a beer and it's really bitter, you can say this is super hoppy. This is maybe a little too hoppy for me. It's a matter of taste. Some people love that super double dry hopped flavor. If you don't, that's fine. You don't have to. It doesn't make you less of a beer drinker or bad at drinking beer. Some other general terms you should know when it comes to drinking and describing beer. The color is important. It's just another thing that you perceive it as it is. This is a light beer, this is a dark beer, this beer has a reddish color. These are all valid, and a lot of it just comes down to words you already know, much like with taste. If something is light or heavy, that's also pretty intuitive. If you know the difference between what drinking whole milk tastes and feels like versus skim milk, one is closer to water, whereas one is thicker going down. So if you're describing a beer, or you hear someone describing a beer as light or heavy, that's what they're referring to. Other things to know as a beer novice: if you're at a really dedicated beer bar, a place where the bartenders are really proud of the beer program that they have going on, don't be afraid to ask to taste something before you order a full glass. You can just say, "Can I try some of that one?" If you try a little bit of it and you don't like it, you'll be really glad that you didn't commit to drinking 16 ounces of it. It's not a weird thing to do, assuming a bar is not super packed and crazy. Also along those lines, don't be afraid to ask your friends or bartenders for recommendations, advice. Curiosity is something that people who work in the drink industry typically love, and they're really happy to share their favorite this or that. As far as I'm concerned, curiosity can be just as good as knowledge sometimes. So wanting to know more about stuff and admitting what you don't know, I think is just a very attractive trait in a person in general. But also, it's a good way to learn things so that maybe down the line you won't have to fake it so much. Another thing I really, really want people who are new to the world of beer drinking to learn is, don't be bullied into drinking one thing or another. Don't feel like you have to drink something that's super bitter. Don't feel like you have to drink IPAs or whatever your friends may be drinking. There are a million different styles of beer for a reason. People have all different tastes, and you won't like all of them. And that's okay, and neither will the master cicerone who may be sitting next to you. People have different tastes, and that's fine. It's good to know about all different styles if you can, but you don't have to like all of them. And that means that if all of your friends are liking whatever beer is like the highest rated on Untapped right now, that everyone on craft beer Reddit is geeking out about, well, if you don't like it, you don't like it. Don't drink it. Save it for the people who do like it. Drink something else and be happy. If there's anything I want you to take away from all of this, it's that beer can and should be fun. Don't be intimidated by beer geeks. Maybe if you feel like you need to fake it around people who seem to know a lot about beer, I hope I've helped you out a little bit. But ultimately, be curious, be willing to learn new things and admit what you don't know, and don't let anyone make you feel bad for not knowing something or not liking something. Beer is supposed to be fun. Have a pint, relax.